What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Call Tact podcast. Thank you so very much for joining us today. We got a very special guest. We got producer extraordinaire, Ray Rock.
What's going
Ray
on?
Rock's in the building. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. You know, just having a little technical difficulties, trying to get my camera looking good. And you know, if you see me looking down at you, it's because for somehow like my setup is it has you down there. So you know, so it's gonna look like I'm like this.
It is what it is. And this is a podcast, so most people will be listening anyway.
Hey,
so,
you know what?
you know.
Hey.
So how's your day going? I know you guys just got back from the road, right?
Got back.
How was that?
Yeah, my day's good, man. Got back from the road 2 days ago. Was at in Houston, Texas, at Lakewood Church, and then after that, Lakewood Church doing a private event, and then after that, we did a ticketed event in Arlington, Texas. And so,
I think I seen a post about that.
Yeah. So
how was that?
That was dope. That was really dope. Amazing. Just had a great time. You know, got to do my thing. You know, on the
Bring the energy.
You know.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's it, man. Like, I wish I could like say like, oh man, this happened. You know what I mean? But like, it was just we did a great show. You know, and I got to do what I love to do, and I'm able to look at myself in the mirror when I do what I love to do. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like
that's big. Not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah, I get the privilege to be a part of music that does a lot of good. You know?
Yeah. Especially in an industry like that where there's so much negative.
Absolutely.
To be able to say that you're bringing positive and uplifting music out there, that's a big deal. So before we get into anything, before we kind of introduce you, we do something on here anytime I have a guest called the Big Three.
Let's go.
The Big Three is just 3 off the wall random questions just to kind of get the blood flowing a little bit. So you ready?
I'm not prepared, but go ahead, let's go.
All right, here we go. So question
should have asked
number
my publicist. No, I'm just kidding.
Should have asked your wife when she was in there a minute ago.
Right. She was.
They got all the answers. That's one thing I've learned in my married life. I love you, babe, but the wives, they got all the answers, right?
Man, wisdom is definitely a she.
Okay. So question number 1: if you had to, would you rather defend the Earth against an alien invasion or a robot attack?
Robot attack.
Robot attack?
Absolutely.
That alien invasion, I feel like the first thing I would do is grab a water hose, see if you could squirt them with a water hose. Maybe that might. I mean, who knows? Who knows what their weakness might be? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm more afraid of artificial intelligence than I am of aliens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so question number 2: which Transformer would you be if you had the option to pick a Transformer? Which one would you be?
Man, I don't want to be cheesy, but I there's something about Bumblebee that's just amazing. You know?
Yeah,
it's just
that's kind of the go-to.
Yeah, you know what it is that Bumblebee is so. I feel like Optimus Prime he's amazing. He's like the GOAT, right? But he's also like a grandfather. Like when you hear his voice, you're like, I definitely don't want to be associated with Grandpa. You know,
he's been around a while. You could tell,
right? And but, I don't have that much wisdom. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
I'm learning. You know, so I'll be the Bumblebee.
Well, and the thing about that too is he talks through the radio, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of lines up with your career, music-wise.
Absolutely. You know? So that's basically that's a big push.
Yeah. Okay. So question number 3. So you're into like wrestling, Monday Night SmackDown, all that kind of stuff, right?
I was.
Okay, I
was.
Okay.
I am still, but like I'm more of like a vintage wrestling guy. You know?
That's fine. That's fine. I don't know anything about it myself. I was just trying to.
Yeah, I know the big matches. You know, I know the big matches.
Okay.
But I don't know anything about what's going on like day to day. Like, yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. So question number 3. So if you had to choose a tag team partner And it's a two-part question. If you had to choose a tag team partner, who would it be? And then also, what would your signature move be?
Dang, a tag team partner.
Yeah.
Like, and I would pick a professional wrestler to be my tag team partner.
I guess it could be anybody you want,
Yeah, well,
professional or...
in my mind, I just thought, The Undertaker, man. The Undertaker he was my favorite as a kid. I used to love Paul Bearer holding his urn. Oh, my Undertaker! You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he's alive. Like
all that stuff.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
All the theatrics. That come with. It's that, man. He was just, man. He hit you with that chokehold and you're done. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my guy right there. So I would definitely do Undertaker. Maybe Shawn Michaels too, because he was just fly. Got the sweet chin music. Undertaker, and then like the move. I don't know, man. I guess I would do like a move where like I'll pick somebody up so that he can do like a super chokehold. You know what I mean? Like a lifted one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was never I have two boys. And so as soon as I get home from work every day, it's wrestle, right away. So, I grew up wrestling with my little brother and stuff like that, but we never got into like any of the professional stuff like that. We were more into like football, basketball, that kind of stuff.
Football and basketball was big in my house. My parents came into faith. Like they weren't like from a Christian evangelical background at all, And so I guess like, I got away with seeing stuff that like, most Christian families, will not approve of, you know what I mean? Because, wrestling, it's kind of like, it's just, even though it's like, I call it soap operas for guys. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So that's the big three, just to kind of warm up. We don't take ourselves too seriously, so just to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit. So let's go back to that. So like growing up wise, so you grew up in a Christian home. Was that something that was going on, going to church and stuff like that coming up?
Yeah, I mean, from the age of 12, 13,
mm-hmm.
That's when like, I could say that like my parents, they were very, very. They had their own experience with Jesus, you know what I mean? And so they started taking me to church. And I actually went to church on my own because I got invited by a friend in my school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they shared their faith with me. I saw the change in their life. It was a person that I was getting into scuffles with, like small fights and stuff like that. And, one amazing summer where I was a lot bigger, a lot stronger, I was like, I can't wait to see this guy, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow.
And when I saw him, I was like, what's up? You know what I'm saying? You want to fight now,
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready now.
Exactly. And instead he was like, nah, man, I don't want to be that person, and I'm like, oh man, he's definitely intimidated by me. You know what I mean? I was thinking it was all that, and it was really him saying like, hey man, I went to this summer camp.
Wow.
I had basically a moment with Jesus. And I just being that type of person isn't the person I want to be in.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
The walls closed in on me. My parents. And the guy I went to school with.
Oh, so that was all about the same time then?
Yeah, so my parents got saved. They started going to church. I wasn't going with them much. They would drag me. I got you. And then that guy too. So it all came like that.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy the way that God can bring circumstances and people into your life that, there's not really any other explanation other than it's something that He has done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think... I grew up in a Christian home, and I know you have kids, right? You have two daughters?
Yeah, I got two.
It's, I got 3 kids myself, and like I said, I grew up in a Christian home, and it was all, I think you have to come to a point in your life where you, like, have to realize, like, am I doing what I'm doing just because this is tradition? Like, this is what my parents did. This is what I'm expected to do. Or like, you know, you got to like find your faith for yourself and figure out, is what I'm doing, does this make sense? You know what I mean? You got to find your faith for yourself, make it real for you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I definitely had that moment. You know, the plus side of you know, the advantage of people like myself, where I got to see my parents before they made a decision to follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
That's good.
Got a 1-year-old. Basically, the plus side is that you got to see the change in them. You know what I mean? And it's kind of a decision that we're all making, kind of like together. You know, it left an impression on me, and then I had my own experience with God. So then I was like, okay, you know, I know God is real. And I knew I had an experience with God because during that great hiatus where people stopped going to church between the ages of 16 and 28, like I was heavily in church. You know,
that's good.
You know, like I had basically why I say it's an advantage is because, you know, I had a taste of the world to a degree. You know, I got to see the heartache that my parents went through before coming to Jesus. I got to see my own, the things that, like, man, you know, dealing with certain things and having a relationship with God and just thinking about, man, how would I do this if I didn't know Jesus? You know? So that's the advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So how do you think that shaped, like, maybe your marriage, like how you raise your daughters and stuff like that? Because like you said, you had that advantage because you got to see, like you said, how your parents were before and then after, so you could see that change and see how Jesus was working. But like for your kids, they're seeing it their whole life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're seeing it their whole life. I try to be as authentic as possible to who I am.
Big.
You know? It's not popular and it doesn't come with too many perks. It comes with respect, like, yo, like people feel safe around you, you know. And a lot of times people misconstrue someone being authentically themselves and being honest with somebody who is like a place for dissension. Or like sometimes people come to me and because I say, like, you know, because I speak my raw truth of where I'm at with the Lord. Sometimes people come to me and they'll say something like out of pocket, and I'm like, bro, just because I'm telling the truth of where I'm at with the Lord doesn't mean that like we're gonna bash, you know, some pastor or the church or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's not what's happening here. Like just because you hear me say something very truthful, like, you know, about where I'm at with the Lord, like, you know, just because if you ask me, hey, if you ask me, you know, Ray, how you really doing, you know, I will tell you how I'm really doing, you know. I'll tell you, hey, I'm not doing well, you know.
Yeah.
Like life sucks right now, you know. There was a period of time where a friend of mine, you know, it's kind of inconclusive what happened to him. You know, but, you know, it seems like it was suicide. No one really knows, you know what I mean? And, you know, people were asking me if I was okay. And my answer was like, I'm not okay. You know, I hope I get to be okay. But I don't think I could recover from this, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that I'm not functional and I'm not going to be, but I think that I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life, you know? And for certain groups of Christian people, you know, you can't give them an answer like, I think I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life, you know what I mean? It just sounds like you're lacking faith, you know, I'm lacking the fact that God can do anything. And I'm like, yeah, God can do it. God could do it. But right now, the blunt force of this is I don't see this going away. You know what I mean? So, so things like that. So that truth kind of like, it makes people like a safe place to share with me how they're really feeling, and they know that they're not going to be judged.
Yeah.
At other times, it also comes off as like they think that I'm like I got a chip on my shoulder, but it's not. Like I'm a jerk who said yes to Jesus. Like that's basically it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think that's also important too, to think that even though we're going through trials and tribulations in our life, the Bible tells us to expect that. Christian life is not all, flowers and roses. It's a tough life, but the Bible promises us that Jesus is with us, through the storms, through no matter whatever it is. He's always going to be there for us to provide that way of escape. I can't remember the exact Bible reference, but, it talks about he's not going to give you more than you can handle. And so that's one thing I think to be encouraged about if you're going through maybe a rough season in your life. One thing that the Lord's really been laying on my heart is time. My son, he just turned 4 years old the other day, and it's like, God, man, time goes by so quick, and you can be stuck in a season where you're like, this feels like I'm never getting out of this. But then I think about when we had my son, I feel like we were just going, getting in the car to go to the hospital to go have him, and then here he is turning 4 years old. So it's like, it goes by so quick. So it's just like, it does, especially when you have kids. I kept hearing, because we have, like I said before, we have 3. And so as soon as my daughter started kindergarten, everybody's like, as soon as she starts school, it's over. It goes by so quick. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it really has. I can't believe it. She's turning 8 this year. And it's just like, feel like she should be the one turning 4, and then my son should just be born. But, it goes by so quick. But I say all that to say this: the tough times that you have in your life, this too shall pass. You're going to get through it. And like you're saying, don't be afraid to be vulnerable with people. Don't be afraid to be honest with people. Seek out other people's opinion. And if it's somebody like Ray, who he says he's going to speak his mind, you got to have a little bit of thick skin too. Don't be going in there,
absolutely,
easily getting your feelings hurt. You know what I mean?
No, and I kind of give people a disclaimer, like, I am attempting to tell you the truth in love as best as I can make out in our relational equity what would be loving for you. You get what I mean? But
in love, that's the key. In
love, right? So I'm going to be as Christ-like as possible, right? But some people, they, how you say, I've gone through this. Like, I don't even want to say some people, myself, when my spirit is wounded, right? When I'm crushed in my spirit, right? And I have a crushed spirit, my outlook is messed up, right? Like, my outlook isn't pretty. So if you cater to my, if you love me and you're catering to my line of thinking, you know what I mean? That's not going to be the best for me, right? You want to do what's best for me, And so it's kind of like somebody who gets a gunshot wound, and they're in a lot of pain, and some people won't let the doctor touch the wound because it hurts so much. You get what I mean? Right? But they asked to be brought to a doctor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So sometimes I'm in a conversation with somebody, and they're asked to have a conversation with me, right?
Yeah.
To have my input, right?
Yeah.
Right? But in all reality, when the conversation starts going, certain things start to get painful, and I have sympathy for it. So I say, hey, you want me to, if you want me to reel it back, we can reel it back. If you're not ready, I'm just letting you know that, I'm not going to hold your hand when something's happening in your life that could be detrimental to your life, to your soul,
Yeah.
to your family.
Yeah, you don't want to be a crutch. You don't want to be
Right.
a crutch for people. Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember one time when I first, I've been married now 10 years, and
God, congratulations.
thank you, man. 10 years. Actually make 10 years in August. So
Okay.
it's coming up, and
Yeah. Y'all do anything big?
you know what? We're like in the talks of it right now, because we
Yeah.
have like a bunch of other things that are happening during that. Like we're one of those couples that like we don't have to celebrate our anniversary that day,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and for it to be special. Like
Yeah.
if it's a bigger, better experience 2 weeks later.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, we'll wait.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I'm the same way. Yeah, me and my wife, our anniversary is next Saturday, I think, the 18th, June
Yeah.
18th. It'll be 6 years for us. So
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
goes by quick.
So in those 10 years of being married, and I'm sure you being married as long as you have, you get some bad advice, right? So
Most of it's bad.
yeah. So sometimes,
Just being honest.
So one time I told a friend of mine, man, like, yeah, man, me and my wife, we're going through it right now. We're just at each other, man. The peace is just not there, And the guy was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry that's happening," and that part was good. Then here's the part that I'm like,
His advice.
what's wrong with you? He was like, "Yeah, man, if you need a place to stay, you can
Oh,
stay.
no.
You can stay. I have an apartment, in South Beach. You know what I mean?" And I'm like, "Bro, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm gonna use hell because that's
Yeah.
advice that comes from hell, right?
Yeah.
It's like push,
I hear you.
push me back to my wife. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Push me back to
Yeah.
my kids and push me back to Jesus. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I mean. So when I say I'm going to be real and give you the truth, I'm giving you the truth, and I'm going to push you back to what's important, even though it hurts. It might hurt, pushing you
Yeah.
back to what's important.
Yeah, marriage. Yeah, marriage is something that it takes so much prayer, so much. Just what me and my wife were talking about that earlier today. Just like it takes 100%. It's not 50% from the husband, 50% from the wife. It's 100% for both of you. Both of you got to be all in and willing to do whatever you need to do to make it work. That's one thing that if you look at divorce rates and stuff like that now, they're just getting higher and higher. Where the further you get away from the instruction manual, the Bible, the further away we get from that, the more
Right.
things start to get chaotic, the more things, they don't work,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely key that you make sure that you're grounded, you and your wife. I've heard it said before that it's like a triangle. You and your wife are on the bottom, and then you're pointing up to Jesus. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, no,
that's
true.
definitely key.
It's true.
Yeah.
The Jesus, being at the center, is so important. And when I say Jesus being at the center, I'm like, I'm not, how you say, I'm not decorated with a ton of degrees in the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know?
me neither, dude.
But what I am decorated in that I can say confidently is that I've spent years serving God and in prayer. That I've gotten to know the heart of God. I can honestly say
that's
I know
big.
God's heart. And so it's just like when we say Jesus at the center of it all, we're not just. It's not even an interpretation of that. It's God. We want God's heart. You know what I mean? God's love for people.
Yeah.
To be at the center, because ultimately speaking, God's love is perfect and never fails.
Yeah.
And my love fails. My wife's love fails.
Oh, yeah. Every day.
No one's perfect every day, right? So it's one of those things where, the further away that you get away from, the heart and the person of the Bible, the more mess you're gonna find yourself in.
Yeah, and that's one thing too. One of my favorite scriptures. I think it's one of the first 5 books of Acts, and it really encourages me because I'm like that too. Like I don't have any kind of biblical degrees or anything like that. But you see Peter and John are speaking in the synagogue, and it says in there that the people that they were speaking to could see that they were uneducated, common men, but they had been with Jesus, so they spoke with boldness. So it's like, that's how I feel like in my life. Like, I'm not trying to equate myself to Peter and John, but it's like, that's how I feel too. Because it's like, I'm a common, uneducated man, but I try my best to, walk with Jesus and try to live the way that we're supposed to live. So, we'll get into a little bit of the music. Was that something that's always kind of been a thing for you? Like, even growing up and stuff, you always like a love for music?
Yeah, I always had a love for for Jesus and music.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really cheesy. I always had a love for Jesus and music, but obviously, I don't want to say always. There was moments where it sparked. You know what I mean? So, for me, even though I didn't have a come to faith moment when I was even though I didn't have one until I was a teenager, seeing my grandmother pray, she was a very devoted Catholic, it kind of opened me to that. So same thing with music, you know what I mean? I've always had a passion for music, I wasn't one of those people that was singing when they were 3 and stuff like that. But it was one of those things where I remember being, 8 or 9 and I wanted to record things, stuff that was on the radio. I had tapes, I would steal CDs from my uncles, under the pretense that I was gonna borrow it, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, can I borrow that? This is before you can make a copy of a CD, so I was like, congratulations, Merry Christmas to me, and I liked all kinds of music, I'm Puerto Rican, so we have a very mixed group of people, we're not entirely Spanish, we're not entirely indigenous. We're not entirely black, we're a hodgepodge, blend, a beautiful, I don't even want to say hodgepodge, but a beautiful tapestry of those cultures, and those races. And because of that, our music is, it's very, our music IQ gives us I would, and I'm just talking up for all the Caribbean people out there. Our music IQ is awesome. It gives us a leg up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the reason being is that, it's in our culture. Polyrhythmic instruments. Spanish guitar. All those things, one of the main genres of music in Puerto Rico, for years was salsa, And what is salsa? Salsa was a word that just meant, a bunch of ingredients chopped down into a sauce,
Goes good with chips.
It goes good with chips, right? But believe it or not, salsa can almost go on anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the idea, of that music. So because that music has its roots in jazz, I was open to jazz. Because that music has some roots in classical music, I was open to classical music. Because it had a lot of African elements in it, then I was open to world music, and it made me always love music. I was the eclectic kid when it wasn't cool. When I went to school, your black friends listen to this, your white friends would listen to that, and my taste in music and food and culture, because I wasn't born in the U.S. either. I was born on U.S. soil, but I wasn't born, in the stateside.
Yeah.
My taste in music, was it white enough for my white friends, black enough for my black friends, and then I got older and I realized that all those guys were secretly listening to each other's music. You know what I mean?
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Right? It was like, man, you just didn't want to seem not cool,
Yeah.
But you were singing, "It's tearing up my heart." I looked weird because I was singing it all. You know what I mean?
I feel like that brings more like to your specific craft. Like if you're recording with a certain guy, because you're not just set on that one genre, you can bring in a variety of different flavors, if you will. You know what I'm saying, to that, and that can make it more interesting. A specific song or whatever project you're working on.
Absolutely, man. Like, I didn't wear UFO pants, but I loved Korn. You know what I mean? Growing up, and Limp Bizkit. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like it's all those things have, and then becoming a professional DJ, like, that really like made how do you say when you become a professional DJ, it keeps you eternally young, eternally relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because, I can't, like, if you were getting married and you're like, hey, my 10-year anniversary is coming over, you know what I mean? I need you to DJ for us, right? A good DJ will take a survey of the taste of the married couple and of the groomsmen, the people who are there, and, create a playlist where everyone's going to have a good time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's some issues where, like, the groom and the bride, their taste is kind of counter to everybody else's, but you find a middle ground where everybody gets happy, right?
Yeah.
But I never go in there saying, you guys don't know music, I know music, and start playing whatever I want, right? My taste is in the playlist. There's going to be songs where they intersect, and I'll be throwing in some stuff that I think you might like, you know. But it would be ridiculous for me to be like, "Oh, your music is trash," right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that you can't call some lyrical content trash, but again, you're saying it's trash because it's promoting something trashy. But even the trash, has an artistic approach. You know what I mean? And so the best DJs, they
Or at
never
least
say
an attempt.
or an attempt or whatever you want to say, right? It's subjective, but music is subjective. But when millions of people like something, right?
Yeah.
You just can't go up there and say it's trash. You can say, I think the lyrical content is trash, or I don't connect to the musicality of it, right? But you can't just say it's trash. You have to actually do the thing that keeps people young and keeps your 8-year-old young, and ask the question, why?
Yeah.
That's what keeps DJs and artists and creators young, is because, they never stop. They never hit the ceiling of saying, "Oh, this is not for me." Kids are always like, "Why is that?" They ask so many questions. So for me as a DJ, I might not prefer, a certain type of music, but just because I don't prefer it doesn't mean I don't study it to value where it might work.
Adapt or die.
Right? So, like, you get what I'm saying? So, like, for example, like, it's funny because, like, it could be like, you play the wrong song for the wrong occasion, and that song, is a terrible song now. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, you got to know why it works. Like for me, when I was a kid, I didn't like country music.
Yeah.
And then I figured out why it works. You know, do you want to know?
Well, even though
go for it.
you were dogging me for my country accent before we started recording.
Oh, yeah.
But even so, I'm not a country fan myself.
Yay,
so
hi,
I know
yay,
what you mean for that. Do I?
No, I was imitating your accent.
That was your country accent?
It was yay high and yay small.
Yeah. There you go. No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to throw that in there.
No.
Not all Southerners are big country fans.
Right. And the thing is that, not all country music is the same. You know what I mean? Like, you can be honest and say, you know what, country might not be my thing, but there's a couple that when they play it hits.
There's a reason why that stuff's out there.
Right.
Because it connects. Yeah.
It connects. Yeah. And so for me, like, country music, what I realized when I looked into the why, well, here's why country music works, right? It, at its core, they're very into the lyrical content. Even if the subject matter is about smacking two beers in the air, right? They're very
their dog Blue or whatever.
Right, their dog passing away, or they're very descriptive poetically in their music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, who writes a song about a landslide? You know what I'm saying? That's why that song is amazing, right? So it's that, and then so once I take out like the twanginess, because I didn't grow up in that culture, right?
Right.
And I take out like the do-si-do aspect of it. When I look at it at its lyrical content, and then I also look at that music is kind of very real. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some of it that's phony. You know what I mean? But what I mean when it's very real, it's like Johnny Cash was a thug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I'm a Johnny Cash fan, but
you see what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
hey, country's not for me. And I'm like, what kind of country's not for you?
Yeah,
you know
he was different, though. Yeah, he was different.
Oh, but he was different, though. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Like, country music, you can't talk about country music, when I'm talking about him, Dolly Parton, Garth Brooks, you know what I mean? Like, and all the new guys and stuff like that. I'm throwing out, like, the old classic guys, right? But, like, what I'm basically getting at is that, there's this thing about, for example, Johnny Cash, that I'll listen to Johnny Cash and I'm like, yo, it's just like Tupac. Like, this guy literally, like, I'm listening to some of these stories and I'm like, yo, you sound like a rapper. You sound like, did you really get away with that? You know what I mean? Like, like, this is some really crazy criminal activity here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Guns is blazing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that made me fall in love with, like, music and DJing, and what keeps me essentially so young. You know what I mean? I encourage everyone to have a DJ mindset, which is like, hey, a DJ asks first, hey, what are you into?
Mm-hmm.
And then they consider the culture that they're connected to it. You know what I mean? There's some songs that I hated, right? And then when I realized that they were connected to college fraternity stuff, I'm like, oh, this is why I don't connect to it. Because it's like a fraternity song,
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. This is a song where, we rep our fraternity and we do our certain dance to it, and we, and then they do their dance to it, and the last man standing wins. Yeah. Anyway, I know I'm like scatterbrained.
No, that's all good. No, dude, I like it. This stuff's interesting to me. So, like, what's you talk about maybe sometimes in a show, maybe a song, or at a wedding or whatever, maybe a song doesn't land. Has there been a specific time for you, or maybe song didn't hit, like if something crazy happened?
Yeah. Certain songs, there's certain places that you think about them through the lens of, it's just like people, we think about certain people through the media. Sometimes we think about certain places through the radio, or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I kind of think, I kind of think about it too. Like, like if a comedian gets up there and tells a joke and it doesn't hit and it's just kind of awkward, everybody,
Yeah, it's awkward.
is it kind of like, do you think it'd be?
It is like that. It is like that. But what makes it awkward? What makes it awkward is the comedian said the joke because he's under the assumption that
Everybody's going to go with it.
Everybody's going to go with it, and they're connected to this idea. Just like not everybody who's from Texas loves country music.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you might I'm thinking that this country record, this Garth Brooks or Hootie and the Blowfish song is gonna go really well, because I'm assuming, you know what I mean, because I don't have enough data, right? So that's the thing about DJs. You have to, when those moments happen, it's because I don't have enough data on the people that I'm serving, right? I'm not feeling the crowd enough.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. Or it happens. Oh, I'll give you 2 reasons. It only happens for these 2 reasons. I'm unprepared. I'm not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I said unprepared. I'm unprepared. And 2, as much as I tried to prepare, right, I wasn't getting enough data from the people. So now the assumption, ends up hurting me, right? So, some places, hey, like this particular part of Houston, Texas, they're really into lyrics and like rap lyrics. You know what I mean? So they want to hear like, lyricism, and they appreciate a certain type of rap, like, where I'm thinking everything's gonna be like "Paw Wow, baby," you know what I'm saying? Like, that type of music. And they're like, "Nah, we invited you to give us your New York stuff." You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then the New Yorker is basically trying to compromise to their needs, and that could be it, So so that happens, but you got to just be on your toes, and if
got to be able to roll with it.
Got to be able to roll with it and be able to transition, because being a DJ is more than just playing a record, pressing play, DJ spacebar, is blending records and also being an MC, a master of ceremony. You know what I'm saying? It's, you can even play into the fact that this didn't land right. This didn't land right. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny, and everybody's like, no, you know what I mean? And then, you do got to know some Texas anthems. Like if you're seeing that there's some people that might like hip hop, you know what I mean, and you don't know Players Anthem by UGK, like there's certain songs that they're gonna ring off,
Yeah. So you really got to do your homework depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
How does that? Because I know you're probably on the road a lot, right?
Yeah.
So how is that with being on the road a lot and being a father? How is that the balance? Where do you find the balance in that? I know that's got to be hard.
In my industry, there is no balance. You have to take the balance. You have to fight for the balance. You have to implement the balance. You know what I mean? There isn't a balance like how most 9-to-5 jobs, right? You work from 9 to 5, right?
Yeah, you know what time you're going in, what time you're going out.
What time you're going in, what time you're going out. You know what I mean? So there is no balance. You make the balance. You implement the balance. You know what I mean? And you have a level of self-respect for the principles that you want. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So If not, it's going to be about all the wrong things. If it's about money, then you won't have balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to fight for that balance. So the way I fight for that balance is tons of communication with my wife, communication, collaboration, and creativity. So the reason why I say communication is that I know what shows I'm doing ahead of time. So I do family meetings with my wife, and we put these dates in, into the calendar on Google, on Google Calendar, and then, the collaboration is my wife, and my road manager. They're gonna see things. Oh, you're gonna be in this city. Maybe you can see this person. You know what I mean? Or you're gonna be in this city. Maybe this is where this is really close to where your wife's family's from, and maybe you can fly your children to meet you there, and you can do like a vacation out of it, like a small 3-day thing out of it, right? So that collaboration. So it's like that communication of like, hey, me and my wife are putting the dates in, right? And we're doing that, the collaboration in saying, hey, them pointing out things that are connected, that might be of importance, and then the creativity is learning how to have quality time and not be physically there. So like right now, you and I are having quality time.
Sure.
There's nobody else in this room that I'm in.
Yeah.
Right?
I know of. Yeah, I can't see it. Oh.
Yeah, there's nobody here. And, for the most part, like, you're wearing headphones. So even if there's people on the other side of what you're doing, right, your undivided attention is given to me, right? I think that, that being okay to be creative and saying, hey, like, we're going to have a date night, me and my wife, right? And so how are we going to have this date night? Well, we're going to set it with a date. You set a date and time, for when is the date, right? So if you have reservations, you're going to say, hey, I got reservations at this restaurant. So the reservations are on Zoom, at 7:30, and, like, so what we do is like, hey, like, let's go, let's grab some food, come to the Zoom with food, and then it becomes like a cool experience where like, hey, what you eating? Oh, that looks good, yada yada yada. And just start talking that, talk about the day, whatever. So there is no balance in these creative jobs. You have to make the balance. You got to take it, set some principles and ground rules.
Yeah, got to do what you got to do to provide for the family. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's the thing too. Talk about like being creative. That evidently it's worked for y'all to have been celebrating 10 years coming up this year. So evidently something's working. You know what I mean?
It's working. It's a lot of humility, on both sides, and therapy, man. Me and my wife, we've been going to therapy since the third year of our marriage. You know what I mean? Every year, once a week.
Yeah.
Some people never go to therapy. You know what I mean? And
there's definitely a stigma.
There's a stigma. Or some people are like, they're not aware of their blind spots. You know what I mean? They're not trying to.
They're not self-aware.
Not self-aware. They love how things are. But they have no visions of what things could be, right?
Yeah.
So, like, me and my wife going to therapy. We're not just going to therapy when things are bad. You know what I mean? We're going to therapy to figure out how to make things even better.
Yeah.
I grew up with how you say where my parents' word was the law. You better listen. You know what I mean? You got yourself a spanking. You know, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you.
and those are the tools that they had. And I'm not saying that that they did bad. You know what I mean? It turned out pretty good. At the same time, what I will say is that some of the tools that they were given, weren't enough, right? Think about this: when you're a kid and you get into an altercation with somebody, right? Your parents, at best, the best advice that they give you is like, "Hey, man, just walk away." Walk away, right? If you get cornered, the best information is, show your dominance. You know what I mean? And handle your business. That's the advice that you get, right? The problem is that if you use those tools from when you get married, right?
Yeah,
it's not
that's so true,
right? And they're like, "What do you mean? What's so wrong with walking away when you're mad?" You know what I mean? And I'm just like, "Hey, it's not that it's wrong. It's just like you should have more tools, for the person you
the
love,
maturity,
right? And you can't use the tools. You can't your ground level." Your ground level should, like, the first thing that comes to mind shouldn't be walking away, because that's the same.
That's good.
You're putting your enemy, somebody in the street that you have no relational equity with, right? And your wife in the same situation, because walking away might create issues of abandonment. You know what I mean? Does it really solve anything? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the idea is, in my house, we don't walk away from each other.
That's good.
We excuse ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a big difference. And when you excuse yourself, you're not excusing yourself saying, "Oh, I got to get out of here. I'm walking away." No, that's just walking away. But when you excuse yourself, you explain, and you say, "Hey, right now, I feel overwhelmed. And I don't want there to be something unhealthy in this conversation, and I would appreciate it if we can circle back to this conversation at a later time, right?"
Yeah.
And then check this out. It doesn't stop there. The other person now says, they can even be honest and be like, "Well, I'm frustrated that you don't want to have this conversation."
Been there.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the next step is to say, even though I'm frustrated that you don't want to have this conversation right now, I want to respect your how you're feeling right now. But what time do you want to circle back on this, or when do you want to circle back on this? A lot of people think because they told somebody that they're mad and they walked away that they're doing great. No, you just walked away. You were just mad. You didn't really excuse yourself. There's no manners and there's no understanding of the other person, right? So what ends up happening is you walk away upset, angry, right?
It's just festering.
It's festering, and then when you excuse yourself and you circle back, there's an expiration. You're putting a time clock. So you basically. If you come back to the conversation and you haven't sought through your feelings, you know what I'm saying? Then you need more time. You know what I mean? So it's not about that you can't have the time to walk away and stuff like that, but it has to be productive.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like
definitely.
So those are the things that came out from being married for 10 years. It's like, oh man, we're not coming here because our marriage is bad. We're coming here to like elevate.
To learn.
To learn.
Yeah, for sure. Growing together, that's what it's all about.
Right now, I'm not saying that I won't result and fall into the temptation, and use the tools that my parents used on my daughter. You know what I mean? My daughter is with an S. But what I will say is that I'm grateful for the example that they gave me, and I want to bring more to the table,
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to do better for your kids than you had growing up. Even if you had the best childhood, you still want to do better for your kids. You know what I mean? At least that's how I feel about it anyway. But so it's been, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I got 2 more questions, then we'll let you get out of here. What would you say, maybe on the road or maybe in production of a song, you got any kind of crazy stories? Maybe something at a live event or anything like that? One of your crazier stories? I know there's got to be many.
Man, a crazy story that's happened on the road.
Or maybe
I got one for you.
Production or whatever.
I got one for you. I did a show with the Mineo, with Andy Mineo, and
Who?
with Andrew Mineo, Andy Mineo.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know Andy.
Mineo, say it again, Mineo. Yeah, so I did a gig with him, and the show we got when the doors opened to the show, like that we had those really I'm not saying they don't love God, I'm not saying they're not good ones out there, but I'm not saying that they're not effective, but it's not the best way to be effective. So the guys with the bullhorn and the aborted fetuses on the thing, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Turn or burn, God hates fags, all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
Excuse my language, but that's literally what they put on the signs. So they show up, right? And then at the end of the night, a bunch of witches show up,
What?
Yeah, so they're like,
what in the world? Where was this at?
I think it was in Denver, Colorado.
Dang it.
Somewhere in the North Midwest.
Jeez.
They're more west. They're banging on drums and screaming stuff, saying, screaming that they put a hex on the bus,
What?
And it's so crazy because you with a guy like Andy Mineo, you're gonna get it from all sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a guy like myself, I might get it from all sides. I might get somebody saying, because they have the expectation of me being a minister or a pastor of a church and not a person that makes music that is inspired by his relationship with God. You know what I mean? So the minute my song if one of my songs has a lot of this is exactly what God did in my life, and it's very there's a lot of details about Jesus and stuff like that. The witches hate you. You know what I mean? And but if you're vague, you know what I mean, because you're telling a story, it's a creative method or whatever. They're like,
and you're a sellout.
You're a sellout,
Yeah.
And it's just like it sucks because it robs all the art. Like I hate the idea. Like if you saw me dressed like a magician, you know what I mean? And I pulled out a hat, right? And I put my hand in the hat, right? What's gonna come out is usually a rabbit.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like when I don't like making music like that. I don't like making music
predictable.
That's predictable. You see, I'm dressed. You see the bunny ears coming out. You know what I mean? I think it's funny if you turn the rabbit upside down and pull the hat out of his butt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just coming up with stuff in my head. But you see, the creative part of me,
just doing something different.
And even me being funny like that, because people take themselves so serious, they're like, "Oh my God!" Now I'm gonna have animal control people against me. You know what I mean? Whatever, so it's just the idea that whenever you're really doing art, and art at a high level, some of it will be explicitly a truth, right? You go to an art exhibit and there's a sculpture of a naked silhouette. That is the art of the human body, right? It's very different from www.pornhub.com. right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
which is like perversion, you know, and all kinds of nuts, things that are nuts over there, right? But then here's on the flip side, you draw, you see a painting, of of two people, going up a mountain, and and the more you stare at it, you're like, oh man, there's something about these two people, like there's like a hidden message in it, right? That make the crazy thing about art is that the reality of the art and how realistic art can look can impact you, right? And then the subtleness of the art, right, and how it creeps up on you can impact you, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think especially with music too, because and to art also, like painting and stuff like that. But like music, I can turn on a song and it can take me back in time to like a specific, like a feeling that I had at this specific time. That was one thing that you talked about Andy a minute ago that was big for me was the Arrow.
Yeah,
the EP.
Great. I think that was
got that.
that's my favorite EP.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah,
out of the
I got
series.
the Cloud and the Arrow tatted just because it was something that was always going to be, like a special record to me. I've seen you guys a couple times in Nashville, and I remember the first time I went was I think it was Friends and Family. Was that 2016 or 15, something like that?
Yep.
Yeah, so I went there, and I went with my dad and my brother, and we got there. We wanted to get there early. We wanted to be the first ones in there. So we get up to the door, and we're waiting. Sun's beating down on us and everything. I don't remember what time of year it was, but I know it was hot. And so we're standing out there. We're waiting. And then people come up. They start lining up behind us. And then some woman comes out, and it's like 10 minutes before the doors are supposed to open. She's like, no, everybody, you're supposed to be lined up over here. So we were like, what? And then everybody just starts swarming over there. And we were like, what the heck, man? We've been here for hours waiting. Everybody's going to get in. But, we got in there. It was all good. But, yeah, that was one of the main things I remember from that. But it was, you guys put on a great show, both the times I've been. And I wanted to see you guys. There was 2 Winter Jam. Did you go on that? Did you go on Winter Jam?
Yeah, I did. I did Winter Extreme twice and Winter Jam one. I did Winter Extreme twice with Andy and one Winter Jam. The last one, the one that got cut short.
Yeah, that's the one. It was. I think they cut it short, literally about 2 weeks before the show I was going to go to, and then I was going to try to go to the Neverland tour, but then that part of the tour got cut short too.
Man, the Neverland tour was incredible too. Like I
saw all the video and stuff. It looked crazy.
As short as it was like a Broadway play. It wasn't. It was not. It was wild to me. It was not like your typical like do a couple of songs and talk.
Yeah.
There was so many theatrics there. Like. It really brought the drama. Like I was like, man, this is sick. You know?
That album is crazy too. My kids, I love my kids more than anything in this world. They're such a blessing, and so I know, especially when he came out with, I guess it was like the preview for the album where he's got the kid in the field running around.
Yeah.
That just it always reminds me of my son, and so it's like. And he was always doing the da-da-da-da. My son, he's just turned 4. So his birthday a couple of days ago, I posted a picture of him with that song. And I'm like, don't want him to grow up. Don't want him to ever leave Neverland. We want him to stay young. It just goes by so quick. So, like I said about the Arrow, I feel like Neverland 2 is going to be one of those special records for me as well, just because every song on there, just makes me think of my son listening to it, driving down the road.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. It's crazy that
it's definitely
the way
an album.
Music can do that.
Especially an album that really encourages people to have childlike faith,
Yeah.
Not to be childish, but to have, a level of awe and wonder and trust. A lot of times people are like, you need to have childlike faith, you know what I mean? And they either miss it with being childish, or they only have one side of the coin by being trusting, by having that pure trust, because the trust that a child has in his father is rooted in the awe and wonder that the son has. So, for example, like my daughter, when she sees a plane, she's like, "Oh my gosh, there's a plane!" Right? And there's a plane. Wow, right? And the fact that I know what it is, and I can point out where it's going, right? That awe, because I can speak to that awe that she has, right? She puts her trust in me, right? Because so that it works hand in hand. It's not just it's not just trust, it's awe. It's just like, wow, like, when you ever hear scientists talk about like how many millions of years it would take for your eyeball to be formed. You get what I mean? Like all the events that took for your eyeball, to attach, for the retina to attach, the marvelousness, right? So it's like, it's all wonder and trust, man. It's a big deal. That's what I like about that album, because it tells you, hey, like, these bad things are happening. These moments are rough. But there is a trust that we need to have in God ultimately. And there's a wonder that needs to be restored back to people.
Yeah. You look at that too when you talk about your daughter, if she sees an airplane or whatever. We should look at it a little bit like a kid, because it's crazy that this thing's just flying through the air.
Bro, we're on a burning rocket. That's what an airplane is.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Check this out. Like, I know I don't want to put fear in people, but it's, we're on a nuclear burning rocket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like if this thing the liability that is, you know what I mean? Like, and what's crazy is that what's crazy is that like we don't think twice. We get on there,
exactly,
right? And then people say, well, yeah, man, this technology has been around and it's gotten better over time, right? And so like, but still, you still got to wear a seatbelt. You know what I mean? There's still life rafts and a lot that goes into this thing. It also makes me think about like this idea of like where people don't give Jesus a chance. You know what I mean? Like, like it's like, dude, like there's a lot of unanswered questions out there. You know? People who read 50 books a year, 20 books a year, or a book a month, and I just imagine, like, being confronted by God and God telling you, hey, man, you read all these books. You need to read this one? You know what I mean? I think one thing, too, about, you talked about faith, ultimately having faith in God. I think that's one thing that's interesting is the other day it just spoke to me. I usually always wear this necklace that's got a depiction of Jesus on it, right? Nice. And then I put on a shirt, didn't think anything about it, and the shirt had on a depiction of Jesus as well. And they didn't look similar at all. You knew it was supposed to be Jesus, but they didn't look alike. And so, it just made me think, and maybe I was thinking into it a little bit too deep, but it's like that trust that Jesus tells us to have is that childlike faith. We don't know what Jesus looked like. But, and if you look back in biblical times, the way that he lined it up from the beginning, you look in Revelations, it says before the foundations of the earth was laid, the lamb had already been slain. So that tells us that there was a plan from the beginning of time. They knew what Jesus was going to do. And so just it's just unbelievable to see, like, Jesus is going to be Jewish,
Jewish people in that day and age did not do paintings because they viewed it as idolatrous. So like the Greeks and the Romans and those people, they did the paintings of people and stuff like that. But the Jews didn't do that. So it's like, to me, it stood out just wearing a shirt, a t-shirt, and a necklace. It's like, wow, the faith that the Lord wants us to have in him. We don't have photos of him, you know, even though they were doing it at that time, the Jewish people did not. So it's like, he really expects us just to take him at his word and just to, you know, have that childlike faith. You know, he tells us that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. So it's just like, that faith is just so important, you know.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, and there's a lot of miraculous things that are cradled around, you know, this awareness and knowledge of faith that we have, right? Like we gotta like, you know, you can talk all the theology you want, but the fact of the matter is that there was people waiting for something, and some dudes got up and followed a star. You know,
right?
There's that. It doesn't get more spiritual and mystical than that. I mean, the problem is that, you know, missing Jesus and getting wrapped up in all of that, and missing Jesus, right? You know, but the idea is we can't rob. You know, that's the sad thing about Christianity today is that, you know, in America is that, you know, Christians will be really quick to get mad at a Buddhist for hugging a tree and embracing the fact that this tree is alive, right? You know, and worshiping nature, right? Well, God made nature to point us to him, right? And God does want us to have an awareness that, yeah, just like the Buddhists, this tree is having the consciousness of saying, hey, this living thing is helping me live right now. You know what I mean? Right? It should just turn us to say, wow, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, that, you know, you're not just sustaining me with your presence and with the word of God and in prayer, but you're sustaining me with all creation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we lose that. And I think that we become very pompous and prideful because we're disconnected to because we have the answer. You know, we're disconnected to how fragile a human being is, and how needy we are. You know, so yeah, it's things that make you say, but yeah, you know, I'm sure somebody's gonna text me or something like that, or send me a DM. We're like, you shouldn't talk about that, you know.
Oh yeah, it's bound to happen. It's bound to happen.
You know, if you can ask other people this, but like, you know what I love to do on my DMs is when I ever get an answer like that. Sometimes I block people if they're really rude and mean, right? Yeah. And then sometimes I get funny and I'll leave like how you leave a recorded voice memo on Instagram. So I'll be like, and
you gotta have some fun.
It's like,
you gotta have some fun when people are being extreme.
You like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, yeah, and then, you know, I get it. You know, sometimes, like, you know, look, man, I know what it is. Look, I was young. I'm a creative. Like, sometimes, like, you know, when it comes to art, I get really passionate and stuff like that. You know, and I know what it is. Like, let's be honest. Like, I'll speak about myself, but I think most people can look back at a time, maybe even last week, where you were strong and wrong.
Right.
Like, yeah, strong and wrong. You know what I mean? You know, and I'm just like, yeah, we would do so much better if we would start admitting things like that. Like, hey, man, like, sometimes I'm strong and wrong, you know.
Yeah.
And I need more
Yeah.
humility, or I need, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, like I said, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I appreciate you coming on, spending a little bit of time with us. You have a maybe like a final word of encouragement to the people out there, maybe a favorite Bible verse or just a word of encouragement, anything like that?
yeah, man, just remember that God thinks about you. You know, you know, I can go to a Bible verse, you know, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to give you a hope and a future. You know, plans to prosper you, right? You know, we get caught up in all the wrong things. We get caught up on the, you know, God got a future for me. Ah, snap. Yeah, you know, God's gonna prosper me. Ooh, you know, and in all reality, the center of that is that God has good thoughts about us. You know, He has good thoughts about us. And so when, you know, when we don't think that, you know, this is like, is this the future you promised? You know what I mean? No, it's already been passed through His good thoughts towards us. You know what I mean? You know, God, so just remember that God has good thoughts about you, and you need to have good thoughts about yourself and good thoughts about other people. You know, it sounds like positive thinking, but it's not. It's rooted in God's love for God so loved the world. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So I appreciate you having me, man, and it's you know, I know you caught me when I was like super exhausted doing many things, but I'm glad we got it in there. We were trying to make this happen, you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It seemed like we had it worked out, and then something happened, and then had to reschedule a couple times. We got it in there. We're going to have to do a part 2 sometime.
The first time it was me, but the second time was you.
Yeah, you're going to put it, calling me out again. First you're digging on my accent, and now you're...
I gotta call it for what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, we got you in there. So, like I said, I really appreciate your time. And yeah, y'all go check Ray Rock out on Instagram. You got what? Instagram, Twitter's everything, just Ray Rock?
I am Ray Rock for everything.
I am Ray Rock.
You. I'm pretty boring, but follow me anyway.
Yeah, give them a follow. So thank you guys for tuning in. Y'all have a good week, Lord willing. We'll see you again next week. God bless.
All right, peace.